Noted economist Dr. Ray Perryman, an East Texas native and president CEO of the Perryman Group, presented his 30th annual Economic Outlook Conference today at Green Acres Baptist Church. Before his luncheon presentation, he held a news conference and answered media questions.
All right, well, I know that you're here to share hopefully some good news with East Texans. What do you have to tell the people here today about what our economic outlook is?
Well, I think it will be mostly good news today. Obviously, there's still some issues at the national level. We're growing. We've been growing for a while. A lot of positive signs, but still haven't built the momentum we'd like to. But Texas is leading the world in economic growth right now and continues to do quite well. And East Texas seems to be performing pretty much in line with Texas, which is very encouraging.
And I know in the past you've said particular sectors like having a lot of medical field here
right.
has helped. Is that still something
Oh, absolutely. It's still very much a growth industry. It's obviously swirling in controversy with the health care bill and all that right now, but the bottom line is through thick and thin, good economies and bad, it just keeps growing and growing and growing. And right now, the number of your facilities here are expanding in the health care area. Of course, Centene's just located their facilities here, which will bring even more expansion for the industry. So yeah, that'll continue to be a major part of the growth of the area.
Is there anything about the Affordable Health Care Act that's going to affect us negatively?
Well, it's the biggest negative effect it's having right now is the uncertainty that it's creating around the cost of health care in the future and that sort of thing, and that's continuing to cause people to be reluctant to invest and that sort of thing all over the country, certainly not localized here, but it has its impacts. As it plays out, a lot depends on how the rules get written and what changes are made and that sort of thing. I think it had a lot of good intentions. Some of those have obviously been sidetracked by other things. It's become entirely too political these days. I think ultimately it will bring more access into the system and have some positive effects, but it also has some, in terms of some of the formulas for employee payments and that sort of thing right now, there's some things that have to be fixed before it can achieve its full potential.
What kind of things do you think need to be fixed?
Well, a lot of the formulas are just I guess the nice way to say it is they got the math wrong. The number of employers who would likely take advantage of the subsidies on the system is much higher than what they anticipated. That's going to create a big budget situation that the federal government's going to have to deal with. That's one issue. The way they've compelled the rating of people in terms of the coverage of pre-existing conditions and very sick people, and yet giving an easy way for healthier people not to get in can raise the cost of insurance, particularly for healthier people. That's going to be an issue. They have to work with those formulas over time and make somewhat more reasonable.
Are there any particular sectors of the economy here in East Texas that might be growing more?
Sure. One sector that is not growing as much here as in other places, but it is growing, is energy. I mean, we're continuing to see expansion in the energy industry all over Texas, and not as much here as some other places, but you do have some of the shale formations around here, and as natural gas prices recover in the coming years, you'll see that development pick up again. But a lot of the oil field service engineering companies and that sort of thing that are based in the Tyler area that service the oil and gas industry are doing quite well right now.
Is this current boom going to offset the big dump that we took in the 80s in the energy sector?
Well, it's getting close. In terms of production, production in Texas went down basically from 1973 to 2008, and we've already made up about 30 years of that decline. And so it is catching up pretty significantly. And I think the important thing is that production is actually increasing this time around, which was not the case back in the 70s and 80s. So there's a lot of positive things about this particular oil situation that are very different. It's driven by more fundamental supply and demand factors as opposed to the geopolitics that went on before. And so I do think this one has more staying power, although certainly it's a commodity. It will fluctuate in price some, but it has more staying power, and I think will be a much more sustainable situation than what we saw before.
Compared to the rest of the state, how is production in East Texas doing?
Well, the real action is out in the Permian fields in West Texas, the Wolfberry and those trends, and then down in the Eagle Ford in South Texas, and that's where the huge production is really improving right now. So East Texas is not in that sort of sweet spot of the highest levels of production right now. But again, there's a lot of the gas around here that it's feasible to get to, and the price to make it feasible is going down all the time with this technology. So I think there's a good future out there for it.
How's the water situation in East Texas?
Well, it could be better. I mean, we have water challenges all over the state, and that's one of the huge issues we have to deal with to support long-term growth. We've gotten a start on that at this point in time with the amendment that was just passed, but we haven't done nearly enough. It's certainly better in East Texas than it is in some of the like in West Texas where I live, out in the desert. But because you do have some reservoirs and some supplies here, but water is going to be a key issue to support economic growth for quite some time.
What's the solution for it?
Well, I think there are a lot of solutions. I think we have to figure out ways to use some of the brackish water we have in Texas. I think we have to look at more reservoir development. I think we have to look at more effective use of groundwater. I don't think it's one magic solution. And I think we have to look at conservation. So, I mean, it's going to be a package of things that get this done.
Are there any other challenges you think we're going to need to overcome?
Oh, sure. I mean, infrastructure, highways, roads is a big challenge that we face in the future. You know, we're adding 1,000 people a day to the state of Texas, and we're not funding our highway infrastructure adequately to support that. And our congestion problems are going up, and it affects the logistics and efficiency of companies. And then also the biggest one by far in terms of a challenge is education. And we have to have world-class education at all levels if we're going to compete in the economy of the future. And we're not investing the resources to get there right now.
And I know a lot of these things are really address the entire state's needs. Is there anything in particular that you feel like people here in East Texas, you know, whether they live in Tyler or just outside of Tyler or work here or maybe don't even have a job here, what do you feel like they should really, you know, take away from how we sort of rank in East Texas as far as our economic strength?
Well, a lot of them are national issues, but they affect all of us. I mean, all of us are affected by what the Federal Reserve does. All of us are affected by the cost of health care, things like that. But in particular in this area, I think that the strength in the health sector and the biotech sector is something that you've worked very strategically to build over time. And that's paying some significant dividends for the area. I think that's a very positive thing. Some of the commercial real estate development is starting to pick back up again. It was kind of slow during the recession, and that's starting to pick back up again. So there's some very positive things specifically in this area that I think bode well for the future.
If we look back 25 years ago, what kind of change have we seen in East Texas?
Well, let's see. 25 years ago would be 1989. We were in the middle of a very difficult real estate bust at that time. We were in the middle of a very difficult oil bust at that time. And so East Texas had some really significant economic challenges at that time. In fact, it was around that time, 86, 87, I think, that we first started working here on strategic plans to try to help the economy diversify and things of that nature. It was about that time Tom Mullins came on board as the economic development director in East Texas, which was, I think, a major positive step forward. So there were some real challenges in the economy 25 years ago, and I think it's in a much better place today. It's more diverse. It's in an upswing as opposed to a very sluggish situation. And so I think that, you know, while there's always challenges in the economy, I think it's in a much better place today than it was 25 years ago.
And do you think the planning that they started 25 years ago was the right path?
Oh, I think so. Absolutely. It was a move toward diversification to include things other than energy, and in particular, the medical biotech sector was one of the key things, and that's worked out very, very well for the area. It's continued to target some strategic manufacturing and overcome some obstacles along the way. Some big plants have closed and that sort of thing, but the area's continued to grow and expand. I think that speaks very well. Sorry about my voice. I'm trying.
In terms of development in the medical industry, are there any key individuals from the Tyler area that you can give credit to?
Well, there's too many. I don't want to start naming names and that sort of thing, but there's clearly the financial community in Tyler and some of the leaders in the financial community, both the current generation and the past generation, have really had some vision and played a role in helping a lot of those things happen. Some of the leadership at the health facilities as well. I mean, if I go back, and if I had to name one name that's over the last 25 years, his influence is still being felt, I would probably say Dub Ryder was a huge impact on this area for many, many years in many, many positive ways. But there were a number of others, and so I mean, I'm afraid if I start naming people, I'll leave somebody out. But there's been very effective leadership, and you should not discount the fact that Tom came here 25 years ago. He came with a very good reputation in economic development, and he has lived up to that and really set the tone for some very positive movement in this here in Tyler, and continues to do so. And I think I think you have to give him some credit for what's happened in the last 25 years as well.
Do you still see a lot of businesses wanting to relocate to Texas, to the south? Like there was the Colorado gun manufacturing that's moving its business out to Wyoming and to Texas. Do you see a lot of that wanting to happen?
We are seeing quite a bit of that. Our regulatory climate's attractive. We have some good incentive programs, and we're consistently leading the country in new locations. For example, last year when they gave that Governor's Cup, which is for the state that has the most new relocations of a certain size in a year. I mean, we won it, but not only did we win it, we had like about 700. We were in first place. Ohio was in second place with about 400. So I mean, not only did we win it, we kind of lapped the field, and so we'll continue to see that happen in a very strong way.
How would you compare the East Texas area to the rest of the state right now? Not excluding what you told me about energy.
Well, it depends on where you look. Obviously, you can't really exclude energy because South Texas and West Texas are growing very rapidly right now because of energy. I mean, to an almost unsustainable level. I mean, where I live out in Odessa right now, if you want to stay in the Holiday Inn tonight, it's going to cost you $300. And but you can't stay because the rooms are booked for the next 5 years. So I mean, it's there's some unsustainable levels of growth out there in some areas, but although they're working to catch up with everything, so certainly South Texas and West Texas are seeing tremendous growth. But once you get past that, our projections for Tyler over the next 5 years are pretty much directly in line with the state average. And of course, those areas are bringing up the state average to some extent. But so Tyler is performing better than a lot of places right now. We have, again, virtually identical growth rates projected for Tyler in the state as a whole in most economic indicators: sales, income, gross product, employment. And so it's performing better than most parts of the state, but you do have those one or two that are just exploding right now because they're in the middle of a very specific energy boom at this point in time.
So the growth percentage for East Texas, what would you call it?
Well, it's roughly around 4.5% in gross product that we're projecting right now, and about 2% in employment. And those are really good, solid numbers to sustain over an extended period of time. Somewhere around here, there's a handout floating around that gives you some numbers, and there's a website you can go to on it that gives you a bunch more. So.
Anybody else? I feel like I'm dominating.
How would you say alcohol sales in the area for the last year?
I'm sorry?
Alcohol sales, how would you say that is impacted?
Well, from what I've seen thus far, it looks like the actual alcohol tax money is averaging around $36,000–$37,000 a month. We looked at that on an annualized basis a few days ago when someone asked me a question about it, and went back and looked at what we projected that would mean in terms of economic activity for the area, and it was remarkably on target. So it appears it's having a very positive impact.
You can read Casey Murphy's full story, what Perryman is predicting for 2014, later today on tylerpaper.com and in tomorrow's Tyler Morning Telegraph.